Greetings, everyone. Here are the main points in the video. The top secret plan was exposed, the true intentions of Vladimir Putin. When he ordered the general staff to prepare a new spearhead attack to retake Kyiv. Why is the direction this time not Belarus? And how did Ukrainian intelligence data expose the deadly miscalculation by Moscow? Miracle 670. How could a weaker army, both in numbers and firepower, break the back of the massive war machine of 721,300 Russian troops in an area of 670 square kilometers? The key is the top-level tactic known as strangling enemy logistics. The warning bell comes from the heart, a bitter confession from the head of Russia's largest state bank about economic exhaustion and the spreading panic of general mobilization among the elite. A top-secret geopolitical move. Ukraine and its NATO allies have joined hands to build a super factory. Just how invulnerable is it? The appearance of the Gripen E fighters and the Meteor supersonic missiles will put an end to Russia's air superiority. Welcome to the War Analysis and Discussion Program. Before we get into the details, we kindly ask you to take a few seconds to like the video and subscribe to the channel so we can continue. Thank you, dear viewers. 721,000 Russian troops lost. Commanders are in chaos. The plan to retake Kyiv from the Vine's axis failed. Dear viewers, the world is witnessing dramatic turning points. As the battlefield in the Ukraine-Russia war keeps shifting, it is completely overturning traditional military doctrines. The world has just witnessed a notable move. Russian President Vladimir Putin has ordered the general staff to prepare a large-scale attack plan to retake the capital Kyiv. This time, the dangerous spearhead does not come from the Belarusian border as before. Instead, it applies heavy pressure from Vine's province, moving directly into Chernihiv region. The strategic intention is to open up a completely new front. This warning has already been given by the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian army, Mr. Oleksandr Syrsky. It was clearly identified and firmly confirmed based on top-secret defense intelligence data. In official statements, Mr. Putin once confidently asserted that Russian forces were only 10.5 kilometers away from the strategic city of Sumy. However, this illusion of victory seems to be built on embellished reports, because the reality from the lower-level apparatus is that the situation on the ground is brutal. The actual distance on the map is more than 23 kilometers. This discrepancy reflects a serious breakdown in communication within the command apparatus. Since the beginning of 2026, the strategic initiative has shifted dramatically. Facing a massive force consisting of 721,300 Russian troops, the army of President Volodymyr Zelensky, they didn't collapse, they launched thunderous, unexpected counterattacks. During that harsh and bloody trial, Ukrainian forces bravely liberated more than 670 square kilometers of territory from Russian control, a feat that shook the international observers. These telling figures were announced live on television by Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrsky. They have become undeniable evidence of a tactical trap and severe stagnation that the enemy is suffering on the battlefield. The focus of this breakthrough lies at the vital intersection between three southern and south-central provinces, Zaporizhia, Dnipropetrovsk, and Donetsk. Right at the Oleksandritska axis, within the strategic Donetsk-Zaporizhia triangle, Ukrainian units have completely taken control of the situation, forcing Russian regiments into defensive positions, many of which are in dire straits. As of May alone, a vast area of about 46 square kilometers around Novovoslivka village. The surrounding areas are now free of enemy troops. The tough question for analysts is, how can a weaker army, both in terms of manpower and artillery firepower, possibly turn the tide against a superior opponent? Victory comes not from reckless attacks, but from smart strategies that cut off the enemy's supply lines. The lifeblood of this will-breaking tactic is systematic raids using drones. Yes, by deploying mid-range and long-range UAVs, Ukraine has paralyzed Russia's vital supply lines. On the top Tokas front, amidst the smoke and fire, elite units like the 25th Airborne Brigade of the 7th Rapid Reaction Corps have demonstrated an art of warfare. Modern tactics were used to completely sweep all Russian armored vehicles off the military chessboard. The terrifying weapon responsible for this is the upgraded Hornet drones, which have the ability to penetrate deep. They can go more than 150 kilometers into enemy territory and carry a 4.5 kilogram explosive charge. This transformation is a symbol of victory. It's a symbol of Western flexible military thinking, unlike the old Soviet conservative, cumbersome approach. These night assassins silently approached and destroyed nearly 10 key transportation routes. That was the opening shot. The Cholga Bridge was a key logistical choke point for the Russian army. The supply crisis right in the heart of the stronghold that the Kremlin had to face became the launching pad that helped Ukrainian infantry advance forward. Severed supply lines, bombed roads, and fuel depots engulfed in flames have pushed Russian forces on the front lines into a dire situation of depleted ammunition and hardship. Field reports describe bitter scenes as Russian soldiers have to carry heavy ammunition crates, walking along highways or riding motorcycles across dense minefields under constant fire pressure. All temporary efforts to cling to makeshift bridges have failed, as these groups of foot soldiers quickly become easy prey for patrol drones equipped with cameras. Thermal imaging. Besides that, we can't ignore the game-changing role of Western weapons. The HIMARS systems and Storm Shadow cruise missiles have dealt devastating blows to strategic weapon depots and command centers deep inside Russian territory. These precision weapons have given Ukraine superior operational depth, breaking the momentum of aggressive offensives and paving the way for a brutal war of attrition strategy. The collapse of the Russian logistics network doesn't just stop at ammunition shortages. It's the starting point for a devastating domino effect. Even Moscow's renowned multi-layered air defense has been overwhelmed by this relentless pressure. In June alone, Ukraine's unmanned combat forces detected and destroyed up to 31 pieces of Russian air defense equipment, millions of dollars worth of firepower, like the S-300 and S-400. On the Zyber Peninsula and in Kursk, they were helpless as cheap drones used them for target practice. Losing control of more than 670 kilometers of territory, the entire war machine of President Vladimir Putin is being pushed into a state of severe tactical chaos along the entire front line. Russian garrison units now have no safe coordinates left to refuel, while supply convoys are constantly forced to change routes in desperation to avoid enemy pursuit. Paralysis is spreading like necrosis as generators run out of fuel, causing communication systems to completely collapse, rendering battalion-level orders almost ineffective. The shifting battlefield has given the Ukrainian army a huge tactical advantage, reshaping the face of the war. The balance of power has shifted dramatically, with Russia forced into a defensive position, while Ukraine actively holds the initiative in choosing the time and place to attack. The Kremlin's resigned silence in the face of these heavy territorial and military losses is an abnormal phenomenon, completely outside the usual rules of military thinking. The commander-in-chief of Ukraine, General Oleksandr Shishke, using sharp intelligence sources, has made weighty predictions about this brutal turning point. Accordingly, right after the Russian State Duma elections conclude, which is expected to be around September 18 to September 20, 2026, a massive wave of reinforcements will be rushed to the front lines. The Ukrainian General Staff believes that despite the bloody lessons of the past, Russian commanders will still repeat last year's tactics, using new infantry units to crash into Ukraine's fortified defensive systems. But Kyiv is not sitting idly by and waiting. Facing Moscow's desperate human wave tactic, President Volodymyr Zelensky sent a strong, historically significant warning directly to the Kremlin and the Russian public, that if Mr. Putin is willing to sacrifice another million lives just to crash into this fortress, then those who are next to step onto the battlefield should ask themselves what awaits them. Beyond the military dimension, the Ukrainian leader also delved deeper into the psychological wounds in the crisis. The economy is gnawing away at Russia, and images of Russians patiently lining up to buy gasoline in their own resource-rich country are stark evidence of the war. What was promised to end in just 3 days has now officially entered its 5th long and bloody year. The new Russian recruits lack both modern combat experience and proper training. They will be sent straight into predetermined death zones. If fuel runs out, ammunition is depleted, and radios are cut off, these groups become easy targets for Ukraine's precise firepower and guidance. In recent days, the most alarming military movement has been focused on those giant bombers. In the air, the squadron of 2 95S strategic bombers, capable of carrying nuclear weapons, suddenly took off from a remote Far Eastern airbase to carry out a large-scale evacuation, carrying deadly cruise missiles. This squadron has been permanently relocated to the Alania base in the west, getting closer to Ukrainian targets. This frantic relocation unintentionally reveals the helplessness of the Russian Air Force, as they are caught in the exhausting cycle of constantly moving heavy aircraft to avoid long-range Ukrainian strikes. Behind this unexpected move by Putin and his associates is a plan to launch a new mixed bombing campaign, directly targeting civilian infrastructure and energy systems. The survival of Ukraine is at stake. With superior range and the power of cruise missiles like the Kh-101, these aircraft are expected to unleash fury and exact revenge for losses on the ground, striking directly at Ukrainian cities as they prepare to enter the harsh winter. However, the Ukrainian military will certainly not sit idly by in their barracks in the face of these increasingly threatening moves. In the coming period, a comprehensive military restructuring is being vigorously activated in Kyiv, aiming to permanently liberate even larger territories across all fronts. The centerpiece of this grand military transformation is the creation of unmanned systems forces, an independent branch unprecedented in the history of human warfare. This marks a generational shift toward the concept of fully autonomous combat, with the entire command and operational structure of the Ukrainian military being rebuilt and profoundly reshaped to perfectly adapt to the era of unmanned aircraft, creating a high-tech asymmetric battlefield against Russian power. Since 2025, Kyiv has decisively abandoned the outdated Soviet-style military hierarchy to transition to a modern, NATO-standard corps system, where brigades are organized with fixed structures and autonomy tied to accountability, maximizing real combat effectiveness. Now, instead of traditional infantry waves, precision strike teams backed by artificial intelligence are taking the lead, especially to neutralize the enemy's electronic warfare shields. These systems are securely protected by direct optical fiber connections, turning them into razor-sharp spearheads leading every offensive direction, sweeping away the grim geopolitical landscape. Behind this courageous technological revolution lies not only the extraordinary sacrifices of Ukraine's defense industry, but also the support from Western alliances which are reshaping the strategic balance. The Kyiv government is maintaining vital military agreements with allied countries such as Latvia and Sweden. These commitments go far beyond the front lines and will directly determine the outcome of this life-and-death confrontation. The breakthrough in cooperation with Latvia and the Baltic region has raised the war's industrial aspect to a new geopolitical level. The governments of Ukraine and Latvia have agreed to jointly build a super factory for producing drones, with extremely high capacity, located right next to the Russian border. What is most important is that this strategic facility is located on the territory of a NATO country. The entire production line is completely outside the range of Russian cruise missiles, providing Ukraine with a security guarantee, an absolute and uninterrupted supply. This integration will give birth to a new generation of technological warfare doctrine, blending Europe's advanced technical foundation with Ukraine's hard-earned combat experience. Meanwhile, on the Northern European front, a historic aviation agreement has just been signed with Sweden, carrying the potential to fundamentally shift the balance of power in the skies over Ukraine. President Zelensky's administration has reached a historic agreement with the Swedish government to acquire 16 new-generation Gripen E fighter jets, breaking the long-standing air dominance. The first fighter jets of the Gripen line are expected to be delivered to the Ukrainian military in early 2027, becoming a real nightmare for the Russian Air Force. Especially on the front lines, the advanced weapon that comes with it is the Meteor supersonic air-to-air missile, which carries tremendous deterrent power. It has the ability to lock onto targets and destroy Russian Su-35 fighter jets even before they can approach the borderline. One detail that cannot be overlooked is that the Norwegian defense giant is continuously supplying thousands of shape-charged warheads to Ukraine to integrate them onto various suicide FPV drone models. After that, high-level negotiations with France regarding the localization of Scalp cruise missile production have revealed the vast scale of a military defense network that the West is tightening around Moscow. These alliances are providing the Ukrainian military with continuous air support, cutting-edge technology transfers, and a sustainable supply chain that Russia cannot break. In contrast, the Russian military will have to face increasing isolation on the battlefield under pressure from these comprehensive Western partnerships, forcing them to tighten their belts and ration every artillery shell. The massive air defense systems still in Moscow's hands will sooner or later come under appropriate pressure from Gripen fighters and new-generation drones pouring out of Latvia. Meanwhile, the Kremlin is completely powerless to strike at production facilities located on NATO soil. They likely have no other strategic option but to watch their armored brigades melt away bitterly under a rain of asymmetric firepower from above. All these military upheavals, systemic strategic mistakes, and this technological revolution are ironclad evidence that the war has gone far beyond the boundaries of a primitive trench conflict. Ukraine's recovery of more than 670 square kilometers of territory since the beginning of the year is the most authentic proof, reflecting the internal collapse and systemic failure of Russia. Faced with this situation, the question arises, with such heavy losses, does Putin dare to continue sending new waves of troops to attack Ukraine? Please leave your comments in the comments section below.